It's hot, so you guys are just gonna have to deal with the fans going and the window being open and all that. So, all right. So since we didn't do a pop culture live stream on the weekend because I don't know what happened over the weekend, man, but it wasn't going to work out for me. It didn't work out at all. We're just going to do it today. So we got a couple days into the Diddy trial. We got a couple days off of the Kanye West shenanigans. His mama called him Kanye. I'm calling him Kanye. I'm not going to bother myself. We also got Tory Lanez being stabbed. I don't know that much about that story, but I guess we could talk about that too, because it's all kind of wrapped up in a similar situation here. I'm trying to see if my audio is working. Is my audio working? I'm trying to see if my audio is working. Okay, the audio is working. So by now, everybody's heard Kanye's song, and you know what? Um, it's not it's catchy. That's one thing. People who say that it's not catchy are lying. It's most certainly catchy, but it's wholly inappropriate. It's actually insane. It's an insane record. It's nutty to even put that record out. Um, you don't really learn that. You know what's going on with him already. You already know how he feels because he's been talking about it a lot. But he has made it very easy for people to write him off. You know, for people to just say, "Look, he's nuts. Why are we listening to him?" And this song has pushed. Well, it was already way over. It was already way over. Now it's incredibly out of bounds. It's way out of pocket. Um, I don't think that he's attempting to get attention though. I don't think it's I don't think it's that. I don't think it's just he's trying to get attention. He's trying to be a shock jock. I don't think it's that. What I think it is that Kanye is. I think it's two things. One is it's narcissism. Two is an ingrained bitterness. You know, remember those articles I read a couple of weeks ago about about hip hop and what it means to certain people, and the nihilism within. When you actually learn about these concepts, which I think makes a really good point, is Kanye wants to see the world burn. He wants people to suffer as he suffered. You know, um, he has said this time and time again when he talked about the Jews, right? Where he would say that the Jews they make money off of our pain, but when we take their pain, that was something to that effect that he said. And right now, he is in pain. You know, he's struggling as and not only is he detached from reality, but as it's becoming more and more obvious, he's not going to get what he wants, which is to see his children, to be able to spend time with his children, to be able to spend time with his family. That he's not going to get what he wants. So because he's not going to get what he wants, why should he adhere to societal norms? Which is kind of the question. Like the idea being that these constraints they exist to keep people from overstepping the boundaries. But if you can be punished severely without overstepping the boundaries, which Kanye has, he's been destroyed. Even before he made this song, he was already a person that was mostly not welcome in most spaces. He's betrayed the church. He's done all sorts of horrible things. He's had his bank account taken away. He's had his children taken away from him. What more can you do to the man? At this point, the question is, why shouldn't he make the Heil Hitler song? That's sort of the question at this point. Why shouldn't he make that song? If that's how he feels, like all these people are out here against him, and he deserves to be able to raise his own children, to see his children, then why wouldn't he make that song? I mean, he's already faced all the punishments that you can throw at a man. You've taken away hundreds of millions of dollars from him. You've taken away his bank account. You've taken away his voice, his record deal and all that sort of stuff. What does he have left except for spite and hatred? Those are the only things that you've left him with. He has no hope. No hope remains. So why should he play the game? Why should he continue to play the game? This is the danger of taking everything away from somebody, because either they become a school shooter and they want to see people die, or they do stuff like what Kanye is doing. What is making the world burn? I mean, it ain't right, clearly. But what else do you have? What else does he have? What does he have to live for? He's not going to kill himself, not on purpose anyway. You know, he might be too obsessed with himself to kill himself. He's very focused on how he feels, very focused on his own experiences. But what does he have to live for? Why wouldn't he blow up and make a song like this? Most people wouldn't. Most people would go back to I hate using this language. They would go back to the plantation on their belly and they would apologize. They say sorry and they, try to pick up whatever scraps that remain of their career and whatever scraps remain of their life, and they would continue living, having learned their lesson of never speaking out of turn again, never really saying what they feel again. But Kanye's not that guy. He's actually kind of stupid, you know? Either he's an idiot or he's a genius. It's one or the other. And sometimes you can't really tell the difference. But I can tell you this, that song, it does come from hatred. It's exactly where it comes from. And he has been obvious about it. He hates the world and he hates this system for what it's done to him. What was the main thing he did that got him in trouble? Well, a lot of it has been him doing what they call breaking code. All right, it's stupid, But Kanye West was largely heralded in the media and in the magazines because of its adherence to the black soul tradition. Kanye sort of pushing the definitions of what it means to be a man. He was wearing pink at one point in time, operating in the rap space without being a gangster rapper. You know, um, he faced the slings and the arrows that came with that, with people bullying him, other rappers talking bad about him, and he became a darling when he did the George Bush doesn't care about black people. But then he did, which was quite honestly a slow burn towards the other direction. It started with his ego being out of control, him referring to himself as God, and all this sort of stuff. Then he put on the red hat, was a Trump supporter. Then he started talking about the Jews. Then he started doing business with Groypers and Milo Yiannopoulos. Now he's making Hitler songs. He has run the gamut. He went from doing beats and doing songs with far left Marxists like Talib Kweli to now doing Hitler anthems. And he did this in about a 20-year span. Because 20 years ago, Kanye West was one of the most beloved artists in hip hop. And he was still basically in his first album thereabout. I think Late Registration came out in 2005, 2006, thereabouts. Because Graduation came out in 2007. So he was considered one of the most amazing producers in the history of the game. They was comparing him to Jay Dilla and DJ Premier. He was literally beloved, and his political opinions had a lot to do with that. He was making songs like Spaceship that was, talking about the underprivileged and, you know, being treated differently in the workplace because he's black and male, and how what was the lyric that they had him in the back stacking boxes, then when black people come in they put him at the register, kind of that kind of stuff. When he was making stuff like that, they loved him. And by they, I mean the media. And then he started talking some of that Republican stuff, some of that MAGA stuff. And then he went to a complete 180. Kanye West is what happens when Negroes don't read. Kanye West is crazy. Kanye West is nuts. And a lot of that is there is some truth to it. He's not normal. He ain't right. He's not. He's kind of insane in the membrane, as they call it. But it's been a slow burn from all the slings and the arrows he dealt with in the game, from the breakup of Rockefeller to where he had to choose either Jay-Z or Dame Dash, and he chose Jay-Z, and then Jay-Z betrayed him because Jay-Z don't care about Kanye. Or a lot of his artists, like Pusha T, who have betrayed him and gone against him. Yeah, the White Lives Matter, running around with Candace Owens. There was a lot of stuff that he did over time that led him to being one of the most hated black people on the planet. And slowly but surely, he started a descent that he has not been able to pull himself up from. And he insists that it's all strategic, that there's some great master plan behind it. But overall, he's just getting more and more angry. He's just getting more and more upset. But taking his children away from him basically is the end game. He doesn't really have anything left. And what else does he have? Hello. Hello to everybody. How's everybody doing this evening? But Kanye doesn't have anything left. They took his kids from him. They took away some of his business ventures. He was banned from social media for a while there. They say they even tried to silence him. He's been taken down off of the DSPs, the digital streaming platforms. He's doing interviews with academics on Rumble. It's probably the most serious case of bipolar disorder I've seen in a really long time in another person. How he hasn't been locked up in the hospital yet is kind of it's probably because he moves around so much. You know, if he stayed in one place, they'd probably locked him in the hospital by now. Just doing weird stuff like walking around in that black mask. Then he went and decided he was going to wear a full hood. Just real bizarre behavior. And now we know that he's doing drugs. He's taking that nitrous stuff. So some of this is definitely drug induced, but there's a bitterness and an anger that is attached to his nihilism, or his not even his nihilism, but his egoism. Because Kanye has a huge ego. His ego is way too big for him to kill himself. Unless you could convince him that killing himself would harm the world, then he probably would do it. But he feels he can do a great deal of damage to people by making music, which is what everybody loves from him in the first place. So now he's going to use his music, instead of using it to uplift, which is what he was doing when he was making songs with Common and Talib Kweli. A lot of his stuff was very positive, motivational, upbeat, because there was a lot of backpack rap. Now he's making Hitler songs. And everybody starts, when you look at the entire scope of Kanye's life at this point, just this past 20 years, from his admission that he had a porn addiction, and that's what attracted him to Kim Kardashian, is that she was in porn, and he watched her porno before he pursued her, to this whole thing with his cousin, him talking about performing oral sex on his cousin for who knows how many years, almost 10 years, from what it sounded like. Like, this guy's got a lot going on. There's all sorts of bitterness and trauma and drugs and everything that's involved with the situation. And I got a feeling we are absolutely going to wake up one day and he's dead. It probably won't be 2 days, too much longer after. There's nothing more he can do. He's making Hitler anthems now. There's nothing more you can do. Somebody's probably going to put him down for his own good. We're looking at the complete and utter destruction of Kanye West, and it's not even just him, because now it's Diddy too. Now Smokey Robinson, they're going after 85-year-old Smokey Robinson. They're going after him now. The Diddy trial is crazy. The Diddy trial is psychotic. Everything that I'm reading from that thing is disgusting. I actually bookmarked some of the tweets, because some of this stuff that's coming out of the Diddy trial is insane. Okay? Like, Kanye lost his mind over time, but it seems like Diddy is just a true blue down to his bone structure degenerate. Oh yeah, Shannon Sharp, yeah, absolutely. See, Shannon Sharp is going on like business as usual. You know, like he's coming across. He stepped down from ESPN, but he's moving on virtually unfazed from this thing. He's in big trouble. You know, like he's in a whole lot of trouble. This Shannon Sharp fella. He ain't in the trouble that Diddy is in. He's not in the trouble that Smokey Robinson is in. Smokey Robinson is 85 years old. He's gonna be unfit to for trial. We already know this. But the Diddy cases are interesting, and I don't like this guy. But when you look at the text messages, which of course are the prime. Not only do you got Cassie sitting there herself doing all of this talking about their experiences sexually and all this nonsense, but you also have all of these text messages and emails that they had going back and forth. There's a whole lot of stuff going on here. For starters, what we've learned about Cassie, she had a boyfriend when she met Diddy. She cheated on her boyfriend with Diddy. During the many years that she was messing around with Diddy, she got another boyfriend. She cheated on him with Diddy. That was a rapper, Kid Cudi, who I guess Diddy blew up his car or whatever. So she had at least two different boyfriends that she was screwing around on. And then she said Diddy had made her have sex with 13 other men while he watched. She told stories of baby oil, just copious amounts of baby oil. Absolutely disgusting sexual activity. Absolutely, truly disgusting sexual activity. They were doing drugs together, the two of them. Here's her talk. So somebody from Inner City Press. Here's what the prosecution asked. Like, what is the age difference between you and Sean? Of course, they're not going to call him Diddy, but they're calling him Sean. Cassie said 17 years. How did you feel when Sean invited you to hotel? She says, nervous, excitement. We're going to talk about music. He introduced me to oral sex. I didn't understand it. She said, did you visit Sean in Miami? Yes, I went with Kerry Morgan and Dallas Austin. What did you and Sean do together? Her answer, sexual intercourse. He gave me blue dolphin ecstasy on a boat. Had you ever once taken ecstasy unintentionally? She said yes. It was in the Gatorade. So I mean, she spiked her Gatorade. We're going to skip forward. She says, Cassie says, I thought we were monogamous. The prosecutor asks, was it public? She says, no, I was his artist, also his family, his children. Who was linked to him publicly? He said, Kim Porter. How did Sean treat you at this time? She said, we had fun. And then they said, what was the lifestyle like? He said he had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit. They went to a strip club in New York about 2007, 2008 for Halloween. And she says that his moods varied from day to day. They said, was your relationship exclusive? She said, no. Did you see other men? She said, yes. Did Sean see other women? She says, yes. He said, I am Puff Daddy. I was insanely jealous. Did you move to LA with him? She said, yes. He wanted to be close to his kids who were there. Who paid your rent and while you were in LA? She said, Sean did, except when I had the house in Studio City. Why'd you pay then? She said, I could afford it then. And I wanted to have some control. It was accepted. By whom? Sean. How many songs did you write while you were with Sean? She said hundreds, but most were never released. Some got leaked on the internet, some on mixtapes. How many albums on your deal were not released? She said 9. Did you get paid for them? No. Then she said the freak offs became a job. There was no time to do anything else but to do them. Then try to recover. The prosecutor asked, how much time in your week would freak offs take? She said the longest was 4 days. Her husband is sitting in that room. That woman married, pregnant, talking about 4-day freak offs. The prosecutor asked her, how would you recover from a freak off? She said, I take opiates. I wanted to feel numb. We get massages, IV fluids. The chef would cook us something. The prosecutor asked, how often did you take opiates after freak offs? She says, often. I got urinary tract infections. Were the UTIs painful? They asked her. Very. Antibacterials didn't work anymore. The prosecutor says, how did it feel during the freak offs? She says, burning. I would not advise it. Then they had her read this out loud. I have all these sores on my tongue. I have another UTI. The prosecutor says, what sore? She says, friction in my mouth. The prosecutor says, from what? She says, oral sex. This is what they're talking about while this woman's husband is sitting right there. The prosecutor says, you said another UTI, then sad face emoji. She says, I was open with him about them. She was open with him about her UTIs. She would go to sex clubs with Sean and an escort named Jules. Apparently, her and Jules never had sex. She said, here was the question. Who was present when Sean put his hands on you at freakouts? She said sometimes the escort was there too. In the same room? Yes. Jules. In the same suite? Yes. Were they aware? Objection. Because she already answered that question. Yes, he was aware. There's one such absolutely disgusting detail that hopefully I saved it. So they talk about her book. How did you get chapters to Sean? She's talking about her book. Through my attorney, I reached out to KK and asked if he read it. She said it was not taken seriously. How much did you ask for the book? $30 million. Did you sue November 2023? What happened with the lawsuit? It settled for $20 million in 24 hours. Why are you testifying in this trial? The prosecution asked. I can't carry this anymore. What's wrong is wrong. I tried people like they were disposable, escorts, anybody. Here's the thing. I was listening to something earlier today. I was listening to G. Craig Lewis earlier today. And he said something that was very profound. He says that if you accept the devil's gift, that's as good as worship, right? And I got to thinking about that. Like sometimes people think that they have rejected the temptation, but they still take a taste of the gift. Cassie took $20 million from this man just a year or so ago. Was still in contact with him. Essentially, this was blackmail. Of course, that's been overlooked because who the hell cares about, the man's rights in this situation? These are, it almost always ends up as blackmail, but people don't care about that. She was gonna, write this book and put out all this information and whatever, and it never happened. But there is a certain story of an escort that said that Cassie asked him to piss on her I want to find that because I want to be. I want to be straight up with what happened here. So some guy named Philip said, so Cassie was actually the one who asked me to urinate on her. They had just come out of the room and she asked me if I had ever done that before, and I said no. She told me to do it, and apparently I was doing it wrong because they both stopped me and told me I was supposed to let out a little bit and not take a leak on her. And then they said Diddy was masturbating in the corner. She took $20 million from this man, and her husband is in that room. But that wasn't it. That wasn't it. There's more degeneracy. There's more sickness. These people are mentally ill. These people are mentally ill. So the prosecutor says, when the drugs ran out, how did you know who to reach out to? She said, Sean would tell me. During the next session, how would you know to move to the next step? She said, Sean. What would happen after the escort finished with you? She responded, Sean would want it on his body in the next room. Did you do that? I did. Where? Usually on his nipples. Did you want to do that? No. She was taking another man's jizz, carrying it from one room to the next, and rubbing it on Diddy's nipples. These people are sick. These people are sick. They're both sick. So then she got cross-examined. I think this happened today. Some very important text messages came out of this thing. One of them was, Cassie said, I love our freak offs when we both want it. Diddy says, I want to do it right now. Cassie says, LOL, me too. Diddy says, Jules is available if you're into it. Cassie said, I love you. Diddy says, do I have your permission to set up sneaky, freaky fun? Cassie responded, ovulating. Then she texts that she'll put some items out, and they discuss what hotel to meet. Diddy said, have fun, impress me. Cassie said, okay. Diddy said, can we kiss a lot? Cassie said, yes. Diddy said, when do you want to freak off? Cassie says, I'm always ready to freak off. Diddy says, I can't wait to watch you. I want you to get real hot. Cassie said, me too. I just want it to be uncontrollable. I want it to be uncontrollable, guys. They actually have texts of them putting together the freak off plans. They're putting together freak off plans, man. They're putting this shit together. So the defense asked her how long were her and Diddy together. She said 11 years. They asked if she was hurt when Diddy cheated. She says at times. She says that. Let me adjust myself. The defense attorney asked why she kept coming back. She said she wouldn't call it coming back. Then what would you call it? The defense asked her to read a text message. She says, I love you. I'll fly anywhere for you. I love you, Cass. Then she said that was very early in the relationship. About 2.5 years into the relationship. They had her read another email that says, I haven't talked to you at all. You don't even try. You rush me off the phone. I'm really hurt. I don't need your money. I need some attention. And then they asked her if she wanted Diddy's attention. She said yes. They showed her more text messages and emails of her saying that she loved him and loved spending time with him. Apparently, there's over 400 of these messages. The free cost messages says, Diddy says, I want to meet. Cassie says, I can't wait either. I feel like I want to fuck. Diddy says, I'm so horny I can't concentrate. Cassie says, I'll go to Dwayne Reed for candles and then set up the room. This doesn't sound like somebody who was forced into it. Now, here's the thing. Diddy is a disgusting human being. This is all very disgusting. Right? This is all degenerate beyond reason. Now, this stuff is not for public consumption. Nobody is supposed to be reading all this stuff. Nobody's supposed to know about any of this stuff. It's gross. It's disgusting. But here's and JS already beat me to it. Not just what happened to personal accountability to this thing, but what happened to a very simple legal standard of beyond reasonable doubt. For 11 years, she was engaged in orgies and complete degenerate sex with this man, even when she had other partners, like boyfriends that she was public with. She still kept going back. This is at what point do we say he's a sick man? He's sick, but she needs to be held responsible for what she did in this situation. She set up some of these rooms. She offered to set up some of these rooms. She asked one of these escorts, the guy testified, she wanted me to piss on her. Come on, man. His children are in the court. Yes, Rebel Penguin is correct. His children are in the courtroom. Her husband is in the courtroom. And this happened because she filed that lawsuit. That's why this is happening. Because outside of the video of him beating her ass, which he couldn't be arrested for, no matter how disgusting we find it, he couldn't be arrested for it because it was so long ago. She filed that lawsuit, which made the federal government pick it up. It's the exact same thing that just happened to Smokey Robinson. Some maids filed a lawsuit, $50, $20, $80 million or some nonsense. And then all of a sudden, the government wants to get involved. Same thing happened to Vince. It's becoming a routine shakedown. Give me double-digit millions of dollars, or I'm going to file a lawsuit. They filed the lawsuit anyway. Then you get investigated anyway, and you lost your money. In this situation, Diddy lost the money anyway. He can't get it back. At least Vince didn't pay the bitch. Like, Vince is in this trouble because he did not pay the girl. Diddy paid the girl, and she did this stuff to him anyway. I don't see it. There is no winner here. Whether he goes to prison or not, Cassie is it's over for her. My God. If I'm her husband, as soon as that check clear, that $20 million clear, I'm getting half of that and leaving. I'm out of here. God damn. It's one thing that I had a previous boyfriend. It's another thing where you got this girl, she's getting urinated on by escorts. They're setting up rooms and she's planning to get pissed on. They're skeeting all over her and she's rubbing the jizz all over Diddy. They're both disgusting. They're both disgusting. Kevin Abreu says, what was the video Diddy made 11 months ago? I hope God forgive me and I'm going to be a better person. Yeah, right. It's impossible. I don't know, man. He gonna need something only Jesus can provide, man. He's in trouble. See, the thing is, because of our current system, they can find all these text messages of Cassie being excited for it, being ready for it, or whatever. They're not gonna say he didn't do it. Reasonable doubt would say whether she was even into it or not. She's sitting here now saying she wasn't into it, but at the time, she's all about it. So she's feeling guilty that she did all this stuff. That's what all this shit is about. She thought she was going to be his only one, and that's what she was saying. I thought we were monogamous. You thought he wanted you. He really just wanted to use you as a chew toy. Once you realized that, it took 10 years before you figured it out, and you decided all of this is wrong. And you know her husband white. That's the only person that deal with some shit like this. A nigga would have thrown Cassie off the roof by now, embarrassing him in public like this. You say you think he set that up? I don't, man, look. They all say that. It's been a long, he playing the long game. 10, 12 years of her sending him text messages and emails. She had other boyfriends. She could have just stopped doing this stuff. Her music wasn't coming out. You have to remember that Cassie was controlled and she was forced to do it. Like somebody puts a pair of batteries, like she had 2 AA batteries planted in the back of her goddamn head. And Diddy was in the other room with a joystick and told her to bring the jizz from that room to. Come on, man. Come on, bro. What the fuck? What the fuck? CNN says CNN already got an article defending her and her white beta bucks as a powerful love story rooted in shared adversity. Look, man. If I was her husband, I wouldn't even go back to that damn courtroom. I wouldn't have been there in the first place. You don't want to hear this stuff. At the same time, though, you're going to hear it anyway because people are going to be talking about it. So you might as well be there, I guess. But nah, man. You might as well have went and found a cum sock under his bed or something like that and put a ring on it. This is disastrous. It's absolutely disastrous. That's the only chance they got. They gonna need a whole new existence. A whole new existence. These people are terrible. These are terrible people. And the thing is, Diddy is in the same situation as R. Kelly, where it's been known for a long time that he is a sick individual. He's sick. He's gross. And there's all kinds of other stuff coming out in this story where she was talking about those guys getting guns and all that when they heard that Suge Knight was going to be in a hotel room or something to that effect. Just a whole bunch of nonsense coming out of this thing. I just can't imagine sitting there listening to this. Couldn't imagine being his oldest kid. I think Justin, who was a kid in the 90s, he got to be what, in his 30s at this point. And he's sitting here listening to his daddy's girlfriend talk all this stuff. I would not. None of this stuff is defensible, in my view. Ain't none of this stuff defensible in my view, man. These people are sick. That's that lust demon. That's what they got going on right here. This ain't regular, and it might have even started healthy, but once you get to the point where you in the cut corner, just watching her get ringed by all these different guys, they're spit roasting her and all this other crazy stuff. She said she had sex with at least 13 different guys while Diddy watched. Now, that's over a long period of time. That's still a lot of fucking people, though. Still a lot of people. And these are escorts. So these guys who are probably having sex with other women, too. And then Diddy's having sex with other women. And then she's got boyfriends while she's doing this stuff. This is gross. This is absolutely abysmal. I hate this. This is the worst story. This is the worst story in the world. This is god awful. Mark Force says, what are your chances you think Diddy team getting him off, or at least getting most of the stuff he's charged for? Diddy been sick for a long time. He just had money to protect him till now. He still got money. The whole thing is they trying to create reasonable doubt to get you to believe that Cassie agreed to almost all of this stuff. That's impossible though, because each sexual encounter is its own potential crime. So if you had sex with somebody 400 times, right? Unless even if you have a sheet of paper saying that she agrees, if around the 10th or 11th time she showed any sort of resistance, it can be considered rape. There's no accountability on what she did before or after. All of a sudden, you can say she's a remote control car. She wasn't in control of her own body, but she was spending the money somehow. Somehow, these people got no control over their own lives, but they buying their own houses, they're buying their own clothes, they're spending the money, they got the credit card, they can do all that shit. But when it comes to the sex part, oh, they're not in control of their own bodies anymore. What the fuck? She's sitting down writing songs, going in the studio, spending up his studio time, doing all this shit, but she's not in control of her own body. She's a remote control car every other time. She's a drone. She's Data from Star Trek. Well, Data actually has accountability. People don't think about this kind of shit. He has such control over her life. She was going out and spending his money on herself, doing what she wanted to do, but he was in complete and total control all the time. Like, come on, man. She's a RC car. He said, so Jaguar Wright is really that crazy because a lot of validity to her claims. That's because a lot of the people knew about this kind of shit with Diddy. Diddy's a sick man. He's a sick man. People knew what he was into. This has not been anything new. We just found out what they were calling it. We just found out they were calling them freak offs. But the Diddy parties has been a thing for a really long time. Going back to the 90s, I used to hear about Diddy parties. And we had a whole lot of athletes and rappers and such showing up at Diddy parties. You got LeBron James on video talking about ain't no party like a Diddy party. You think Cassie ain't? Is they gonna ask Cassie if LeBron James was at the freak off? Probably not. He probably was. He probably was, and was probably there at 17 or some shit. And that's the worst thing about it is Diddy. Not only was Cassie, significantly younger than him, as long as she was an adult, I'm not tripping. But there have been people who were not full adults that were around Diddy. Usher being one of them, right? I'm talking about years and years of this stuff. Over 25 years, 30 years of this shit. Of people who have been around him. He is an absolute sick Negro. The sickest of the sick Negroes. He need to get put down. The brain is developed till you're 25. She had no control. Yes, that's ridiculous, man. That's ridiculous. It's crazy. One of those text messages even said, "Do I have your permission to set up a freak off?" And she said, "Yep." What? And now she's sitting here saying she didn't want to do it. Maybe she got bored. Maybe she got tired of giving him cum massages. This is gross. These people are sick. These people are sick. So you're still waiting on the word that he might have to snitch on Jay-Z to get him out of prison. Let me tell you this. I said it last time. I'm going to say it this time. Ain't nothing happening to Beyonce's husband. At least not now. As long as he is Beyonce's husband, ain't nothing happening to Jay-Z. Nothing. Because they don't want to drag Beyonce into this. Beyonce is the second most beloved Negro on this planet outside of Barack Obama. All right? They do not want Jay-Z and Beyonce caught up in this. Trust me. They tried to get some easy money out of Jay-Z. It didn't happen. They backed off that one real quick. They turned their attention to somebody else. Yeah, Justin Bieber. I knew I was thinking of somebody else. Aaliyah, absolutely. Aaliyah was around them. But these people are sick. The amount of children that they put in the music business, they get around these weirdos, these absolute bona fide degenerates, and this is how they behave. This is how they behave. Sick Negroes. Oh yeah, J-Lo. She's been trying to get out of this stuff for a long time. I'm surprised her name hasn't come up in this shit yet. You got this nigga with a RICO charge, pretty much by himself. Like the Dave Chappelle joke. How is he in a RICO by himself? He ain't got no co-defendants. And the weird thing is they investigated Vince McMahon for like 2 years. Didn't really find anything. Diddy less than a year. He on trial. So that means they probably been saving shit up. This is awful, bro. This is bad. This is very bad. That man is in trouble. That man's in jeopardy. That's what they. Trouble is not even. That's not even the right term anymore. That man is in danger. I don't think he's gonna live out the rest of his days if he get found guilty. He probably will kill himself. Diddy seems like the kind of guy who probably would kill himself. They said the prosecutor showed Cassie photos of 13 men, some of whom Cassie knew by name, admitted she had sex with all of them during the freak-offs with Diddy. No. He was there. I'm looking at it right now. That Cassie's husband was listening as she was talking about these 13 men she was having sex with at the freak-offs. He was sitting right there. He was sitting right there. They even got a picture of the guy now. He and that bitch fuming, blood boiling. He's sitting there listening about his wife getting spit roasted by these 13 hoodlums. All these degenerates. To make you wonder if the charges were this crazy, why didn't he take the plea deal that was offered? Yeah, that's kind of where I am at with it. If he knew that they were going to have all these text messages, all these emails, he might be so deluded that he thinks that he can beat this thing. My thing is, he basically just put himself out to dry, and it's over for him. I think it's over for him. As much as I would say she's got to be held responsible for some of this behavior, we're not about to sit here and root through 11 years worth of text messages and emails. As soon as you see that she was down for at least some of this shit, find me the stuff that she wasn't down for. Find me the emails where she said she didn't want to do the freak off. Where she said, "Nah, I don't feel like doing no freak off," and he demanded that she show up. Or that he intimidated her in some way. Like we already see, like, he abused her. That's a fact. That's a fact. It did happen. But we in this courtroom, they're in that courtroom today talking about sex crimes. I never hear any sex crimes. She showed up to these hotel rooms by herself sometimes, knowing he was going to be there just to watch. This is gross. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Why didn't he take the plea deal and try to protect his kids? You feel bad for his mama? His mama's still alive? Right, the child is in the room. Man, that child, man, it's going to be a bad time to be literate when that child is all grown up. About 14, 15, that kid going to be wish he was not literate ever. That kid going to have more DNA than Frankenstein. All right? That kid is a problem. That's fucked up. Very fucked up. Yeah, he's about to do some football numbers. And their only hope is that he's going to get a pardon, which is, I'm guessing, is what they're going to try to angle for. He's going to get found guilty, then they're going to start, Trump, hey, why don't you just pardon Diddy or commute some of this sentence? He's already been in jail for a long time. He stayed through all that. Yeah, he was there. He listened to this shit. You got to start asking questions about what kind of freaky shit he into at this point if he's sitting there listening to this shit. You got to her first. Diddy showed you what's possible, I guess. Huh. This is fucked up. It's not good. It's not funny. This is disgusting. These people are gross. People are sick. I'm itching a lot. I think it's allergies. Shit. Forearms itching. Arms itching. Itchy as hell. Somebody asked a question. Oh, here it is. AJ3 asks if black fatigue is fact or fiction. It's I think it's I definitely think it's definitely a fact. I think everybody is pretty much sick of Negroes, man. Negroes sick of Negroes, white people sick of Negroes. Everybody's tired. I think the term was hijacked by white people who are tired of seeing black people act a fool in airports and Wendy's and the street. But I think it started out as black people are tired of racism and police and all. They come up with all kind of new jingles to say the same thing over and over again. You say you really think the video of the hotel footage of her getting the beats by Dre by him did him in? Yeah, like nobody wants to defend him because of that, you know. And people are going. That's not even evidence in the trial, but I can't imagine anybody who saw that video saying that he didn't do all this stuff. Everybody's going to be like, even though he did beat her up, let him sit in prison. Let's let him go ahead and sit in prison. I don't know, man. That video is pretty bad. They put out a longer version of the video during the trial. You know, they put out a long version of him kicking her in the shit on the elevator, near the elevator. In the middle of the trial, they put this shit out. They don't, man, this nigga cannot win. He can't win. That kid needs to be homeschooled and a name change. You talking about Carmelo Anthony? They said the whites are mad that Carmelo graduated high school, unfortunately. Well, people are just going to be mad about everything. There's nothing you can do about that. The whole thing about that is the kid has no priors. What he did was unyieldingly dumb, but he has no priors, and he's a candidate for bail. I mean, what can you do? Your only reaction would be that people who kill people shouldn't get bail, which I can get behind that. But he's 17. He's eligible for bail. He's eligible. I don't see how he can go back to school. I don't see how he can go back to school. I don't see why the other kids want him in school. But they do things different down there, I guess. It's crazy you could stab somebody, die, and not get expelled from school. Like, how did that happen? I killed this kid, but oh, you think that Cassie's kid needs a home? That kid ain't even born yet. He already gonna need a name change. He gonna need a whole new identity. He need to raise that fucking kid in Thailand or something like that, where nobody knows who he is. He says, crazy some of our black greats just turned out crazy. Man, they already been that way. The thing is, you get the highlight reel of all these people who died way before you were born. You don't find out none of that stuff until years and years later. Because there is some really degenerate shit that happened like during the Harlem Renaissance. And there was like people used to wear like the degeneracy on their sleeve, like, Rick James, you know? And then there's people whose degeneracy comes out years and years later, like Ray Charles. Like Ray Charles was like a kind old man. He was like my grandpa. I grew up with Ray Charles being an old man. He was old when I was born, you know? So finding out all the stuff that he did back in the 50s, you're like, oh no, he was kindly old grandpa. Nah, he was young at one point. He was doing him at one point. They all were. It's not that they all just turned out crazy. That they all had this similar stories, similar situations. They're people with money, which makes them targets. And certain people get into their orbit. And back then, in the past, you would try to get knocked up by some of these Smokey Robinsons or whatever. Now, today, the new wave is to sue them. 50 years ago, you wanted to try to get in Smokey Robinson's orbit because he might knock you up. Now you want to get in his orbit because if he makes an inappropriate joke, if he talks to you any kind of way, touches you in any way, you can sue him for sexual harassment, sexual assault, or whatever, and make tens of millions of dollars. That's how it works now. Mark Ford says, does it make you second guess our history when it comes out bit by bit that our people was just as nasty and sick as white people? I never put Negroes on a pedestal. I'm going to tell you this. Like, once I found out about Martin Luther King, matter of fact, it wasn't Martin Luther King. When I found out about Elijah Muhammad, because I was closer to Elijah Muhammad than I was to Martin Luther King. When I found out that Elijah Muhammad was banging underage girls, getting them pregnant, I was like, oh shit, you can't trust nobody. You can't trust none of these people. Then I heard Martin Luther King was out here slutting it out too, and I was like, oh, I'm not surprised at all. Bill Cosby, not surprised at all. Michael Eric Dyson using his congregation as a brothel, not surprised at all. What I am surprised about is the people who are getting sued about it. Like, who the fuck wants to sue Smokey Robinson? The guy's barely alive. That's probably to their benefit. He's so old he can barely defend himself. You say you disappointed Mr. Medicare last stream who married a Korean woman crying about how whites are victims. I haven't watched. I thought he was dead, to be quite honest. I thought Jim was long gone. Big Armada says it also doesn't help that people on both sides are either lying or aren't giving correct information about the Anthony case. Metcalf's dad said not to make it racial, and the internet told him to F you. Yeah, I mean, once it's public, it's not even in his control anymore. And then it doesn't matter also. And what's throwing more wood on the bonfire is when he showed up to that press conference and Carmelo Anthony's family kicked him out of the press conference. Oh, that did it. The whites got really mad at that point because he's been trying to not make it racial and trying to show some level of maturity about this whole thing. Him with the dead son and the people with the living son said, you can't be here. Get out of here. Oh, the disrespect that guy's dealing with. Yeah. Oh, good Lord. Good Lord, man. Jesus Christ. Can you imagine it? The amount of money these people are making. I've been thoroughly disgusted with this whole ordeal. I've been disgusted with the whole deal. I don't care about the woman calling the little Negro boy a nigger. If you're not gonna beat her up for it, then forget it. But turning her into a multimillionaire over this shit is kind of stupid. Giving this kid hundreds of millions, well, not even hundreds of millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars after he stabbed another kid, even if it's just for his defense, which I know he has a right to and all that, it seems disgusting. But to me, a lot of this feels like it's being manipulated. Because most adult people don't agree with either of these stories because you don't know enough about these situations, especially the one where the kid's life is on the line and another kid was killed. We don't have enough information. In the situation where the white woman called the little Negro boy a nigger, that's completely out of pocket. And that's all we really need to know. I mean, yeah, they said, oh, the little boy was 5 years old and autistic or whatever. I don't know, man. You don't know. We don't know about all that. You're not even thinking about it from that perspective of what the kid did. I think that using these fundraising platforms in this way is causing these problems because now there's retaliatory fundraising platforms. There were some white dudes, a white dude and a white woman, that were doing the Hitler salute while listening to Kanye West song, and they were just jamming, singing the song. But they posted themselves on TikTok doing it, and people quickly found out who they were, contacted their jobs, and guess what happened? They set up a GoFundMe or a Give, Send, Go or whatever it is. Now they got money coming in. Couple of white kids singing Kanye West song, and all of a sudden now they got thousands of dollars. I went on Give, Send, Go is a Christian site, right? I went on that site. There's families asking for money to bury their children. There's families asking for money to pay for cancer treatments. They're asking for prayers. All this sort of stuff ain't got nowhere near the money that these people giving somebody who stabbed a 17-year-old boy and some white woman who called a baby a nigger. And this is a Christian site. They should have shut them both down. All right? Give them whatever you said you was going to give them and then shut it down. We're not taking any more of this stuff because if they're doing nothing but playing into it. The fact that it became so public And a lot of it, they tried to avert some of this stuff because what they did was what triggered the white woman's thing to jump up is the fact that they looked at the comment section of the Carmelo Anthony one, and it was a bunch of anonymous black people, which means they were probably bots or people who didn't want to put their name behind what was being said, celebrating that a white boy got killed. And that triggered a lot of the whites. So then they went and gave money to this white woman and started getting racist in her comment section. And then they shut down the comments for both of them. They should have just paid out the money and then didn't give anybody anything else. That's it. Shut it down. Shut it down. Okay. And then you got that other situation where this guy ran over the police officer, right? Because his son was out stealing cars, allegedly. Got busted with a gun, allegedly, and got shot. His son was 18, 19 years old, very young guy. And in retaliation, his father gets behind the wheel of a car and runs down the first police officer he sees the next day, who happens to be a white man who had no involvement in his son's death. And now you got Negroes trying to give him money on his books. He's already in prison, by the way. So, they put money on his books. And I say what they should do is they should confiscate that money. All the money that these Negroes is giving him, they maxing out his books. I forgot what it's called. I keep want to say congregation, but that's not it. They should confiscate that money and force him to pay restitution with it. He killed a man for no reason. There's no justification for that. But that's how you know our society is getting incredibly sick. We got sex crimes on television and all over social media, gory details of sex crimes. Just really sick details. We got people giving money to murderers, celebrating their crimes, whether it's that Luigi Mangione for shooting that healthcare CEO, whether it's this other guy for running over a police officer with a car, whether it's Carmelo Anthony for stabbing a guy in the chest. What's going on? Like this whole thing is really sick and really out of pocket. You said, what on earth is black fatigue and white fatigue? I've seen a lot of black fatigue videos, and it looked like it's been hijacked. I think the initial idea probably came from some black woman who always like, we are black women and we are tired. And it's always got something to do with racism or something or other. But it got hijacked by white people who are saying they're basically just tired of black people acting up in public, which everybody should be. I'm sick of fight videos. I've been sick of fight videos since, I stopped laughing at, at that kind of stuff, the World Star shit over a decade ago. It's pathetic at this point. And it's always overweight, fat women, black women, arguing with people and getting into fights in public places. And then you had that recent video of this woman acting up in a restaurant with her son, and she's tearing the restaurant up, snatching stuff off the counters and throwing it on the floor, calling the staff bitches. I'm like, it should tase this heifer. Like at this point, I think cashiers and like McDonald's and stuff need to be carrying guns. It's getting ridiculous. These people are going into these stores, they're stealing and tearing shit up. If you dare try to stop them, they'll get violent. They're turning every discussion or conversation. They had these two, of course, overweight black women working at an airport refused to let a man board a plane that he'd already paid a ticket to get on. What's happening here? And no, they didn't get fired on the spot. They got fired like hours after he posted the video. So it took for him to record the video for them to get fired. Where is the accountability? Where's the responsibility? Where is the order? All this stuff is happening because it's been a breakdown in law and order. Nobody is around to hold these people accountable. The security guards have been defanged. The police have been defanged. So everybody can do whatever the fuck they want. Why not go into McDonald's and tear it up? Go behind the counter and flip the burgers and throw grease and do whatever, call people bitches, do whatever you want. Because who's going to do anything about it? 10 years ago, a security guard would have threw you out on your ass. You'd have got slammed and nobody would have got arrested. You'd have just been mad. But now today, if a security guard slams you for trying to steal or start a fight, you can sue the company, which is crazy. That's just crazy. But it's real, it's happening. That's why you can steal in California. That's why you can run in people's houses. You have no rights. Property rights are human rights. I don't care what you say. If you can't defend your car, your business, or your house, you don't have rights at all. You can't defend yourself at all. They just passed a law in California that you must flee your own home if it's during a home invasion. So if some young Crips kick in the back door to your house, you can't shoot them. You have to run. Then what happens when they chase you? You have to keep running. You have no self-defense at all. Who benefits in that situation? Who benefits when you pass stupid ass laws that allow people to tear up places of business, tear up other people's homes, tear up the airport, tear up, restaurants, do whatever they want? Who benefits? How is that beneficial to society that we have all these fat black women acting fools in public? And why is it always fat black women? You would think it would be homeboys, but that's when you see the fight videos. Like there's a recent video of like a white boy who got jumped by a couple of black boys, and then the white boy's daddy gave the black boy a bike or something like that, because white liberals they deal in they deal in guilt. It's embarrassing, man. But yes, black fatigue is real. It's not even that they champion it, it's that they excuse it. They don't have to champion it. They just don't denigrate. You never want to see people get arrested. They advocate for people to not go to jail. You have to realize niggas have to go to jail. Like you see weird stuff all the time. Like when you see these women tearing up the McDonald's or whatever, nobody ever does anything. But when you saw the Derek Chauvin arrest, how many people were standing on the street? Hey man, you don't got to do all that, man. They're getting all involved, distracting the cops, trying to tell them how to do their job. But when the woman is tearing up McDonald's, they just go sit in the corner, don't do nothing. She just go tear the motherfucker up. It's sick. It's sick. You got kids starting fights with teachers. Like that was rare when I was younger. I think 187, actually the movie 187, which I love to death, it opened my eyes to the fact that people even attacked teachers. Because I only heard about one person attacking a teacher when I was in school. I heard it a couple of times when my brothers went to high school. But now it seems to be a regular thing that students are attacking teachers. And that's because you can't expel them. You can't kick them out of school. So the person that has to leave is the teacher. Either that or he just got to be ready to rumble every day. Who the fuck wants to live like that? Why are we condemning people to living in a world that is completely and totally unruly? So what's happening is that, and this is the real thing, and it's gonna hit a real wall. And you may start seeing the rise of Nazis. Is this stuff starting to get into the suburbs? See, the white people didn't give a shit when you tearing up, the restaurants and everything in the hood. They don't care. When you come out there where they are, and you trying to tear shit up and yell at the cops and do whatever you want, and you out there in the suburbs, no, 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 nope. They gonna deal with your ass when you come out there, and it's really gonna be some black fatigue. But the government is shipping niggas out there because now they're setting up Section 8 houses in the suburbs, and they're doing it on purpose. They're shipping ghetto culture to the suburbs on purpose to disrupt the suburbs because the liberals hate the suburbs. They don't like the suburbs. They've never liked the suburbs. The idea that people want to live the idyllic existence of having a single family home with a lawn and a white picket fence, and you work at a decent job when you get off at 5 o'clock, all that boring shit you heard about when you were a kid, they do that in the suburbs. In the hood, no. They're now taking people from the hood who are on Section 8 and moving them to the suburbs. I've heard countless stories of people who in the suburb of Detroit of Southfield, that they've shuffled all these Negroes from Detroit and took them to Southfield and just dumped them. And now Southfield is no different than Detroit. Why are they doing that? There's plenty of space in them for Detroit. Nope. They're putting them out there for a reason. Two reasons. Reason number one, to disrupt the suburbs because they hate the suburbs. And you can always tell where they hate people because that's where they send the undesirables. When I used to work in a group home, they put the group homes in the hood, but they put them in neighborhoods where the people would not object to the group home being there. So we had regular neighbors. And if you was just walking down the street, you wouldn't even known it was a group home until you seen some kid breaking the windows. Then you'd be like, what the hell is going on over there? Some kid running up and down the street because he done ran off the line. They put that shit in the hood because those are the people who are not going to complain until they start complaining. But that's what they do. They put them out there in the state. Now they're starting to move all these nigglets out to the suburbs. And the second reason why they're doing it is so that the people from the suburbs can come back. All the white people who moved away to Warren, Southfield, East Point, or whatever, they're trying to get them to move back into Detroit. So what they're doing is they're going to go out there and disrupt the suburbs. All this hood shit, chili fries at 9 in the morning, taking all that shit all the way out there to the suburbs, potato chip bags, flaming hot Cheetos for breakfast. That culture, they're taking that shit to the suburbs. Once they start up enough fights, start up enough, ghetto bullshit, the white people just gonna get up and leave. They're gonna come right back to Detroit, closer to the stadiums, closer to the Pistons and the Red Wings. That's the only thing they care about. They ain't moving these motherfuckers to Howell, where they might run into a fucking Klan meeting. You're saying a bunch of pragmatic based things in this video. Yeah, that's how I live. That's how I live. White liberals are urbanists. They like the city. They almost always live in the city. The reason why they hate the suburbs is because the suburbs are very conservative. They don't, in the suburbs, they typically don't even want public transportation in the suburbs. And here in Michigan, there has been plenty of times where they have tried to stop smart buses from coming into the suburbs. The smart bus is a private bus service here in Detroit and here in Michigan, and sometimes it crosses city limits. The DDOT, which is a Detroit, the Department of Transportation, it does not cross city limits. So it would get to 8 Mile, then it would turn around and come back. The smart bus would go through 8 Mile because sometimes people have jobs in other places. You have a job in Pontiac or Royal Oak or whatever. You have to cross 8 Mile or cross Woodward or whatever. They would try to stop that because they don't want people being shipped from the city into the suburbs. And they were honest about that and did not lie about it. And they agreed. Several cities got together and was like, yeah, we don't want that bus service coming through here. You're bringing undesirables into our neighborhoods. No, we don't want it. That's racist. They don't give a fuck. It's 99% white out there anyway. They don't care. They don't give a shit. Ain't nothing but rainbow flags out there and Black Lives Matter shit. And then they turn around and say, we don't want no Negroes out here. All right. Stay in Detroit. And they continuously lose in doing that, by the way. But their kids love coming to the city because this is where the airports are. Well, not the airport, but the arenas, Little Caesars, the Fox Theater, the museums, the universities, all that stuff is in the city. So they love coming to the city, but they want to go back home where it's quiet, where ain't no gunshots. You don't want to hang around on 7. You don't want to turn, your neighborhood into 7 Mile. Why would you want to do that? You don't want to do that. They want to be ghetto tourists. But a lot of white liberals, they love the city. Why they vote so heavily in places like New York and Philadelphia for more city services, more taxes. That they just tax. That's all the fuck they do. They love the city. They hate the suburbs because the people in the suburbs are self-sufficient. They don't need a lot of taxes. They don't need public transportation that much. Even the ones who live out there that need somewhere to go because they don't have a car, they can afford Ubers and Lyfts and all that kind of stuff. They don't necessarily need the bus. That's like they tried to build that silly train station that they wanted to have stretch across from downtown Detroit up. What was that? Is that Grand Boulevard? And it was going to stretch all the way to through Highland Park and all that, and it didn't make it. It didn't make it. As soon as it got anywhere near outside of Detroit, they was like, nope, cut it off. Cut it off right there. He said the NIMBY strikes again when it comes to transportation improvements. It's all over New York. I'm surprised you have to deal with that in the Motor City. It's the same thing. It's the same thing everywhere. It's urban suburban drama is everywhere. Everywhere. Because crazy socialists are everywhere. They think that they're entitled to every strip of land, every thought that you have, and that what you own and what you want to protect means nothing. If it means that they have to limit their power, that's not what they want. I can say that, man, it's kind of screwed up because some guy who works, could be a decent dude who just happens to work outside of Detroit, not going to be able to get to work because they don't want the bus coming out there. It is screwed up. It is messed up. But if 3 different cities got together and said we don't want this, what can you do? They pay taxes on the roads and they say no, we don't want this. They may even decide to launch their own bus service, which sometimes they do. Most of the time they don't. Now the weird thing is when I was in college reading about that stuff, they would say really bizarre things. Like one woman said, well, those buses are really noisy. They rumble down the street, bumble, 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 bumble. They make so much noise coming through the streets. I'm like, lady, why do you care about the amount of noise the bus makes? That's one of those euphemisms, those white liberal euphemisms. The buses make so much noise. They ain't about making no noise. It brings Negroes out there. That's the problem. It's bringing the undesirables out there. And it's true. I was one of them. So I already know. They ain't making no errors in that logic. Thoughts on the white African refugees coming to America? You know, I'm not a big fan of them bringing refugees in after we trying to kick refugees out. The whole thing was to get all the illegals out of here. Same time, if you're going to take any refugees, white South Africans would be the ones because they're literally under threat of death. I mean, and it's literal. They've got government chanting "kill the Boer." They're doing land wealth redistribution. They're doing all kind of crazy stuff in South Africa. And it's not even a thing where it's up for debate. They have admitted that they're doing it. Now they've denied that there's farmer killings, but we've seen. I think what's that girl? The Canadian girl. She did a documentary on the farmer killings. Lauren Southern. She did a documentary on the farmer killings. I've been hearing about farmer killings for 20 years. They've had all kind of reparations like bills where the white Boers have to sell their land. Usually under the threat of having it just confiscated. Yeah. If you're going to bring people in, they would probably be the people I would bring in. But at a time where we're kicking people out, we shouldn't be bringing people in, you know. But I still don't think that what was that, 20,000 Haitians or whatever? Get them the fuck out of here, okay? All these Cubans, these Venezuelans, get them out of here. Beat it. Go. Goodbye. Get out of here. The white South Africans, we can debate that, but at least the white South Africans are under threat of literal death. They're going to have their property stripped away from them, and they may be killed because their government is crazy. It's going to crazy communist government. What can you do? That's what the refugee program is for. It's for people who are literally under threat of death. But there's no occupation of Haiti. Like, nobody's trying to kill all the Haitians. They're just poor and they want to come to the US. Okay, that's fine. Do it the right way. And why is the government shipping 20,000 Haitians or whatever to Ohio? Why is that happening? But I'm not a big fan of it. But if you're going to bring people in, it should be people who are in war-torn lands or who the government is actually attacking them. That's literally what it should be for. You know, your refugee program. Not just because people are poor in their own country. Because everybody's poor in comparison to, the United States, Canada, England, Italy, Spain, France, etc. You know, I don't understand why all the Arabs don't go to other Arab countries because they don't play that shit. Like, you don't see all these Arab. Like, you would naturally think, why would the Arabs take their asses to America or England when Saudi Arabia is already over there? Syria is there, Egypt is there, Jordan is there. Like, these are already majority Muslim countries, but then you have to realize that the Muslim idea is to do a world takeover, in a sense. So they have to be all over the globe. I hate to put it that way, but that's kind of how it is. I don't have no problems with Muslim stuff. You say, from what you heard, white South Africans own about 60 to 70% of South Africa's wealth or whatever. Yeah, and they said that some of this stuff comes from bad contracts or stolen lands or whatever the hell, but that's all just justification for the government to try to take things from people. Because they do the same thing here. They would say stuff like the Native Americans got gypped out of Manhattan. Like, it wasn't nothing when when they sold it. It wasn't nothing. The reason why it's worth something now is because the people built something on it. So when you start talking about how they own a certain percentage of wealth, okay, maybe they own the land, but the land by itself generates nothing. They generated the wealth. The wealth is there because they generated it. Like, most people think of these things as that they're axiomatic. Oh, why does the white people have so much wealth? Because they create shit. That's how it was in Zimbabwe. They had almost 70 to 80% of the wealth, but they owned all the farms, and they were professional farmers, and they were farming, doing what they do best. And then the government was racist. It came in, it took over the farms, gave the farms to whoever they wanted to give them to, and the farms stopped being so profitable. The people started starving. They started begging the white people to come back. That's communism in a nutshell. You take something that works from the person who made it work, and then you give it to somebody else who did not build it, don't know how to use it, don't know how it functions, and then they fuck it up. That's all communists want to do anyway. They hate people who are successful. And you can say they got this land by ill-gotten means or whatever. And then you can say, well, we can prove it in a court of law, but your courts can't be trusted. You know, that kind of shit, which is going to happen here eventually. It's going to happen here eventually. We're going to get enough socialists and communists in the courts where we're going to be able to say, yeah, white people stole all this land from Native Americans. And either A, they got to give them money for it, which is going to bankrupt everybody, or B, they got to give the land to X, Y, or Z. And then they're going to ruin it because they never created anything. It's the same concept as giving people money either for playing sports or winning the lottery. When you didn't actually build anything, it's hard to maintain what we call wealth. You can't maintain it if you didn't build it. This is why generations later, people spend all the money and it's gone. Most wealth in the United States, period, 3-4 generations, that money is gone. So when people start talking about all the money built for racism, slavery and all that, I could probably tell you there's likely no generation of slave owners that are still wealthy today that was wealthy back in the 1800s. You know how many times the economy has collapsed since then? How people can sell land back and forth? How people can get hooked on drugs? The whole family fucking die in a car accident or something like that. All kinds of shit happens. The belief that, well, you were rich at one point in time, therefore you're rich forever is nonsense. And the same thing can be said for, well, if you can build the wealth, that means anybody can do it, because that's nonsense. If you could do it, you would just do it. You wouldn't need to take from somebody else to do it. You just do it. Now, it's probably not a lie that they own all the wealth, but how much of that is because they generate all of it? You say you get annoyed by these controversial videos? Hmm. No one really, well, some people care. They care a little bit. Is Donald Trump a pan-European? I don't think so. It doesn't sound like it. Says, what did you think of Wallow talking about black-owned businesses? I didn't see his entire clip, but I heard about it. And paying the black tax, paying extra money just to support black businesses, I actually agree with that. And I came to that conclusion years ago. A lot of it has to do with scale, because they deal with such limited clientele, because typically these black owned businesses kind of shun white people. They have very bad customer service, for starters. And their whole thing is support black businesses. But if you're not, ultimately, my money is what Wallow is saying is, why should he pay more for the same product that he can get from somewhere else just because you're black? I agree with that statement. Because you may say, well, what about supporting your people? Like, okay, what about my responsibility to my family? I have a responsibility to my family to have as much money as possible on hand for when we need to do other things. I'm not about to go and tell people, hey, I spent X amount of dollars on hair gel or whatever, but I've got it from a black owned place. So now I got less money to do this thing over here. That's just stupid. It's dumb. But everybody who says that, they're being selfish. They almost all unanimously own the black owned business. And their whole gimmick is black owned businesses. Conversely, this is going to fuck people up. I feel the exact same way about Made in America. Ultimately, you have a responsibility to your family, not to your country. There are certain things that I will say we absolutely need to make ourselves. Medicines and things that, various people in the country need, like certain batteries and things like that. You don't want that shit being made in China where they could sabotage it or anything like that. You want to make it yourself. But most clothes and, lumber, like, who cares where that shit comes from, really? Like, yes, does it help American jobs? Yes. But ultimately, you have a responsibility to your family to get what you need as cheaply as possible and still be able to take care of other things. This idea that we're going to shackle people into higher prices is nonsense. That's why I'm against the fucking tariffs. Oh, I'm against a lot of what Trump is doing now. He's making me fucking mad. The price controls pissing me off. That's ridiculous. That's absolute socialism, man. I can't stand that shit. But I don't think has he done it yet? Has he actually signed that stupid law yet, capping up drug prices? Mark Forster says he saw a bunch of black women going into a Lululemon and making it look like Magic City. And I'm like, what are you doing? Bring back shame in our community. We got to do better, but we're not going to. It's not about it's shame is enforced by the community. I was going to talk about this in reference to Black fatigue, but I needed to go through the book again. There's a book by Elijah Anderson. It is called it's right there on my shelf. Can I see it from here? I can't see it from here, but it's by Elijah Anderson, and it basically explains why Black culture has getting so much worse and is getting worse and worse over time. And he wrote this book in the 90s, if I remember correctly. But basically, what he says is a small population of people have the larger population afraid, essentially, that the dope man in your neighborhood has the whole neighborhood scared. Nobody wants to call the cops on him because he might retaliate. Nobody, wants to tell him to move out of the neighborhood because, who knows what might happen. So the belligerents, they keep everybody, their culture becomes more dominant because nobody stops it at the smallest level. So what that means is it's broken windows all over again. If you've never heard of broken windows, what it means is if you find an abandoned house that has busted up windows and then it's usually covered in graffiti, that means that the neighborhood is uncared for and therefore you will often see other crimes occurring. So typically it's best to arrest people for things like vandalism and breaking windows and stuff like that so that you can prevent other crimes in the future. Seems sensible. Liberals hate it because they don't want you to, they don't like law and order. And they basically say it doesn't work, but it does work. Only thing is it can be a bit, it's like stop and frisk where you can go too far with it and end up in a police state, but that's neither here nor there. At this point, anything is better than the degeneracy we got now. So what happens is you got all these belligerent people who go into these supermarkets and these restaurants and these high class stores and they start acting up. And other people just don't want any trouble. I don't want no drama. And so they They just turn around and walk away. And it's like I said before, the security guards, the staff, nobody can do anything. Everybody just has to sit there and watch and wait for it to be over. So whether they decide to twerk, whether you decide to steal, whether you decide to turn the bitch upside down and set it on fire, you just wait until it's over. And so what happens is you get more belligerents because now people realize, oh shit, ain't nothing gonna happen. I can go and steal in this place and nobody's gonna arrest me. Nobody's even gonna stop me. Okay, well, why not steal every day? Why not come back every single day? Why not go in Lululemon every day and twerk? Nobody's gonna do anything. It's a breakdown of law and order. And a lot of it has to do with the conservatives giving up the legal system. They coughed up the law schools. So now there's nothing but crazy leftist judges and crazy leftist prosecutors and crazy leftist defense attorneys who will argue that defense of property is not, a compelling state interest. So if they can go in there and steal, they can go in there and destroy stuff, threaten people or whatever, and you're not allowed to do anything. You just have to sit back and wait for it to be over. Wait till the belligerent party decides that they've done enough. You can't consider that somebody might get hurt. You can't consider, basic decency and decorum. None of that stuff matters. The government now controls your store, and your store cannot do anything. You have basically security guards are window dressing now. And I saw that I forget what store it was, but the store is basically now you go into the store and there's nothing on the shelf. You have to basically ask the staff to get it for you. There's like a curtain or whatever with like Faygo or Pepsi on it, and you just point to it like, I want a Pepsi, and they have to go and find the Pepsi and bring it to you. That's like, you thought that, bulletproof glass was bad. We're still going through that where people are like, man, they're putting shampoo behind glass so you can't steal it. But now they're putting pop behind the glass so you can't get it. And why is that? It's not random. It's because people are stealing. It's because people are going in there doing dumb shit like opening the pops, drinking something, and putting it back. They going in there licking the ice cream and putting it back. And they're recording themselves doing it. Complete and total degeneracy, man. It just hurts everybody. There's no benefit to it. Jason Riley has a book called The Affirmative Action Myth. He also has a book called Please Stop Helping Us. I haven't read either one of those, but I need to. He says, I might not always agree with your wrestling takes, but when you do videos like this, I love it. And you're honest and speak from the hip, which is why I always click on the video and upload. I appreciate that. This went on longer than I thought. I'm probably going to end up coming back and doing another video because I want to go through that Elijah Anderson book. AJ3 says, that's always been the problem with conservatives. They don't care. They never cared. And black people should learn from them to not to care instead of falling in love with like the liberals. You have to detach. See, the thing is, liberals, the best way to put it, I put it in sort of Christian terms, liberals love the world. And, that's one thing, like, when you when you look at things from like a Christian worldview, they love the world, the material world, right? That's why they're so focused on it. They're focused on who has a yacht, who has a car, who's got money, who's got this, because comparison is the thief of joy, and they love the world. Conservatives are a little bit more spiritual. They focus mostly on their families. They like stuff, but they get stuff mostly for their family. They want to have a nice house so that they can live comfortably, so they can raise their family. Right? They, they want to send their kids to good schools. So they'll take their kid to the suburbs, even if it means working 2 jobs, to get out of the hood into the suburbs so their kid can go to a better school. They'll go into debt to get a better car so that they can be more reliable. There's certain risks and different things that conservatives are willing to do, and liberals just look at the outcome. This is why they always focus on what they call desperate outcomes, meaning unequal outcomes. They don't care about unequal inputs. They care about unequal outputs. It's unfair that black people and white people don't have the same income. They don't have the same wealth. It's unfair that women and men don't have the same wealth. Yada, yada, yada. They don't look at the same inputs. They don't look at the same processes. They ignore all of that. They're focused on the output. It was so weird to me that when I was in school, people would just destroy these liberal arguments just by looking at the process and the inputs. Like, you're not even looking at things that are the same. Oh, why do men and women make different money? It's because women leave the workforce to have babies and they come back. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. It does matter. Why do the NBA players and the WNBA players make different money? Because they draw differently. They're not equal. There is not equal inputs. So you're not going to get equal output. But they don't care. All leftists care about is material shit. They love the world. And in Christian worldview, if you're a Christian, you realize that the world is the devil. The material stuff is the devil. And it stands to reason that a lot of these people are godless, faithless, and largely lovers of chaos and disorder. Who else would allow you to burn down neighborhoods except people who love disorder? And the disorder comes in 100 different ways. But when you look at liberalism and leftism, it is always disorder. Disordered families, where the father is not in the household, the children can tell the mother what to do. Disorder in the schools, where the teachers don't have any authority. There's no authority anywhere. There's no authority in the streets. There's no authority in the restaurants. No authority in the hotels. No authority anywhere. That's why you got people twerking in Lululemon, because you can do whatever you want. And leftism is nothing but fucking chaos. Disorder constantly. But conservatives, like Christians and some Muslims, they like order. Things have a certain way in the world. This is how this thing works. And look, it don't have to be perfect, but it's better than the other option. Yeah, you might get you some Muslim guy who wants to beat his wife and thinks that she needs to cover up. Okay, but is it better than this woman having 5 kids by 5 different men, living on the government payroll, and her sons are running the streets stealing cars? I mean, I hate that she's going to get beat up, but if I have to have a choice, she's going to get her ass kicked. I would rather that than her sons out here robbing people, killing people, and running the street. But you also have to live in a world, and this is the world I choose to live in, where it's an individual decision, and you just have to live with the outcome. For some people, it's better for you to leave if you're in an abusive relationship, because you might be able to do better by yourself. Most people don't, but who knows? You might be Oprah, right? I choose not to force my way of life on other people. I just say, don't force your way of life on me. What's good for the goose ain't necessarily good for the gander. The goose and the gander are two different things. People are, again, different inputs, different outputs. Some people do fine as single mothers by themselves. Most people don't. You run that gamble if you want to, but the black community has shown you large numbers of women having large numbers of sexual partners, kids out of wedlock, no husband, neighborhoods complete and totally degenerate. That's been the outcome. We've got the outputs for that Black Lives Matter system. We had the outputs before they even put that shit on the website. We already seen how bad it was in the 70s and the 80s. We already knew it was bad. We saw it was bad from the 90s. They was making movies about how bad it was in the 90s. And they remixed that shit and brought it out as Black Lives Matter in 2010s. And niggas like chickens clucking and picking it up with their beaks. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Utterly disgusting. Sick, even. But that's how it is. It's unfortunate. You can tell people what time the train is going to come, and they can decide whether they're going to show up or not. Now, if the train is late, the train's late, but you told them the right thing, right? If I say the train's going to be there at 7:00 and you show up at 7:45, the train's gone already, baby. I told you the right thing. It's coming at 7. You showed up late on purpose. That's your responsibility. If you showed up at 7 and it didn't show up till 7:45, at least you were there when it came, right? It was late, but you were there when it came. And that's kind of how it is in the real world. You tell people the right thing to do, and it's up to them to make the decision or not. You have to live with the outcome any other way. There's nothing nobody can do about it. And you have to live with the outcome. What ends up happening is people try to make the outcome other people's responsibility. I'm gonna talk about this one last thing, and then we're gonna wrap it up. There was this story of this guy, double lung cancer, stage 4 double lung cancer, and his insurance refused to pay for a double lung transplant. I watched on Twitter as all the crazy people, even normal people, are like, oh my God, the healthcare company is going to kill this man. This man's going to die, and it's going to be the healthcare company's fault. Why are they doing this to this man? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, incredible amount of sympathy towards this gentleman. Same time, though, let's do what other people aren't doing, which is look at this thing the way the insurance company is going to look at it. Okay? This guy you only need one lung to live, for starters. So you already don't need a double lung replacement. He only needs one lung to live. You can live a perfect life with one lung. So you don't need two. That's already a problem. Second problem, lungs, healthy lungs that might fit an adult male, incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. So why would we give this one guy 2 lungs? He should only get one. So that's reason enough to deny the double lung transplant right there. He only needs one, and this is a finite resource. But people don't think about things that way, because sympathy means you should be able to get whatever you want at somebody else's expense, regardless of that expense. And the surgery and everything is very expensive. Far more expensive to do a double lung transplant than to do a single lung transplant. Like, this guy's, unfortunately, he's probably going to die. And the insurance company more than likely knew he was going to die anyway. And even giving him another lung, he may corrupt that lung and end up ruining it. And it could have gone to somebody else. But that's just the risk of, transplants. But when you take into account the story and you actually sit down and you think about things, sometimes you realize that the hard decision is the appropriate decision. People think insurance is a bottomless pit. They're supposed to pay for everything, which I hope that was true. I wish that shit was true. I really do. But it's not. They have limits on all this stuff. I don't know if sometimes they don't tell people what the limits are. I wish they would. But insurance companies are not going to spend so much money that they go out of business. So obviously they're going to put some kind of limit on it. It's just hard for people to accept that sometimes. WG Phil says the issues with conservatives, they are too much of a victim complex. They don't want to preserve the cultural institutions that act surprised by entertainment, medicine, or education. I guess why they down bad because they don't want to protect any, because they don't really care about these institutions. And the reason why they don't care about them is because it's kind of a cycle where conservatives believe that the institutions are captured and therefore they don't care. And what ends up happening is the institution gets worse because the conservatives don't care. Right? So they'll say like the universities you can't save them. Just get rid of them. So what happens is the conservatives pull out of the universities. They stop trying to get in. They don't care. They go work for think tanks or private schools or whatever. And then the university just get worse. It just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the moment you pull out, that hole is plugged in with more radicals. And so it just gets worse. And then the crazy thing is all of these institutions end up being funded by the taxpayer. So they never go out of business. They just have worse and worse product. Like the product just gets worse. So when Trump took away federal funding for NPR and PBS, right? Because they're biased left-wing shitholes, right? Which is true. They are. What do you think is going to happen in 5 years? For starters, more than likely, some liberal's going to get in office and go give them the money back. But before then, they're going to go to more liberal funders who is going to pay them to do more propagandistic product. And then once they've got that money secured, and then the new president comes in, the new president's probably going to be AOC or something like that. She's going to give all the money to PBS and NPR again anyway. So now they're going to pump out more crazy left-wing shit. It's going to be even crazier than before because they're going to feel like they have to do it because they're going to get crazy funding from some loony leftist billionaire or something like that. And then they're going to get this government money too. They're going to end up making more money at the end of it. If you can't destroy these things completely, stop playing this game. And that's the thing that I've been having a problem with Rufo and Trump and all these people. You can take money from these institutions. They're going to replace that money somewhere. Either you'll get it from foreign governments or they're going to get it from crazy leftist institutions. Somebody else. Bill Gates or somebody, let's say. Just use an example. It's only going to make them more liberal. That's all it's going to do. It's going to make it worse. So if you really wanted to harm these universities, what you would do is you would start attacking, 1, the endowments, 2, the land. You should increase the taxes on the universities, not just increase. Matter of fact, some of them don't even have to pay taxes. Make them pay property taxes. Because you have some universities like Yale and the University of Michigan, where they pretty much envelop an entire city. Like almost the entire city of Ann Arbor is owned by the University of Michigan. It's like it's more than 20% of the city, I'm sure. And I think that there's another Harvard and all of them, they eat up almost the entire town that they live in. If you force them to pay taxes on that land, they will get rid of it. It'll drain their endowments. They will have to get rid of it. And then they'll have to shrink. They won't be able to pay for everybody to be there. If you put upon them true free market policies, they will be forced to change on their own or die. But doing this government stuff where we're just going to pull funding from, they're going to get funding from somewhere else. And like these organizations, they only lose money for a short amount of time. Like when Doge goes through and cuts all this money, that works. It works for now. And then they're going to find a new funding source. And then it's going to be back up and running again. So they got a real fight on their hands when it comes to getting rid of these entrenched institutions. You have to do more than just pull funding. Because for starters, you don't control the funding, Congress does. Second, soon as the leftists get power, they're going to double and triple the funding for these institutions. If they don't completely and totally destroy the Department of Education, if they don't completely and totally destroy some of these institutions that they've been trying to protect, if they don't get rid of them completely, the liberals are just going to rebuild them with more money and crazier staff than before. Nice. All right, y'all. I appreciate it. It's time to. You said multiculturalism still going strong. I don't know if multiculturalism is really working. The thing is, America, we do have multiculturalism, but it's usually it's in big cities. Like New York and Detroit has multiculturalism because we have Mexican Town, we got Dearborn, we got Hamtramck where all the Arabs are. That's multiculturalism. I don't consider blacks and whites living in the same place to be multiculturalism. Y'all eat the same things, you use the same language. That's not multiculturalism as far as I'm concerned. Multiculturalism is usually some really foreign shit. Like the first time I saw a jar of honey with a comb in it, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Habibi, what is this? You know, what is this shit? What's these squiggly lines on this? You know, that's multiculturalism. You speak a language I don't speak. You know, you teaching me what halal means is multiculturalism. Me and Jimmy Bob both eating hot dogs for the tigers or whatever is not fucking multiculturalism. I'm sorry, we're the same culture. I know that bothers like Tariq Nasheed and all that, but no, it's the same, brother. Hate to break it to you. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll probably be back on Saturday. Peace out.